Following the Vijayabakole of 1521, the Portuguese were allowed to maintain their fortress and trade centre in Colombo, but their actions in Sri Lanka were restricted to trade for the next 5 years. The three sons of the dead king, King Vijayabahu VI, Bonekabahu, Pararajasekara and Mayadunne, divided the kingdom of Kotte among themselves. Bonekabahu, the eldest brother, received the city of Kotte itself and most of its territory, while Pararajasekara received the kingdom of Raigama, and Mayadunne, the youngest brother, received the kingdom Seethawakan. Mayadunne, however, was not content with the rule of Seethawaka only. He looked to expand his power, and he received his chance when Pararajasekara proved an ineffectual ruler who quickly fell under Seethawakan influence. As the king's brother, Mayadunne seized power in Raigama and added it to Seethawaka. Pararajasekara would remain a Seethawakan puppet for the next 15 years. Now that Mayadunne had control of Raigama, he had transformed Seethawaka from a regional power to a force capable of challenging the mighty realm of Kotte itself. He had popular support, and he used it to revise tax systems, spread trade, and otherwise revitalize Seethawaka's economy in preparation for the upcoming conflict with his brother in Kotte. Mayadunne soon began launching raids across the border of Kotte, which were at first small but steadily grew in magnitude. Unlike Seethawaka, Kotte was suffering from an economic crisis, and King Bonekabahu did not have the popular support or military resources to withstand his brother's assaults. His position was further destabilized by the fact that Mayadunne was receiving aid from the Zamorin of Calicut, a Muslim kingdom in northern India. The Zamorin invaded Kotte alongside Mayadunne in the year 1525. The Zamorin and the Portuguese were at the time waging a bitter war over dominance over the trade routes of the Indian Ocean. So in dire straits, King Bonekabahu VII sent a plea for aid to the Portuguese viceroy in Goa. Help did not reach Kotte immediately, however, and in 1527 matters came to a head when a large Muslim army under the leadership of generals Pache Marikkar, Kunhale Marikkar and Ali Ibrahim arrived in Sri Lanka, coordinated with Mayadunne's own forces, and invaded Kotte in a two-pronged assault that speedily overwhelmed the outer provinces. Barely a month after the invasion had begun, they reached and besieged the capital city of Kotte. It was stoutly defended by 10,000 Kotte troops and a handful of Portuguese from the Colombo fort. But they were outnumbered and outmatched. Defeat seemed inevitable when in the nick of time a Portuguese military contingent of several thousand men under Captain Martin Alfonso de Melo disembarked at the Portuguese-held Colombo fort and launched a surprise attack from the north on the oblivious besiegers, routing the Muslim forces and killing their generals. The Seethawakans were driven from the city, only stopped retreating when they had returned to their own kingdom. In the aftermath of the battle, Mayadunne, realizing that he could not defeat his elder brother whilst the Portuguese army remained in Kotte, concluded an agreement with Bonekabahu. Its terms stated that Mayadunne was not to attack Kotte again and return all previously captured territory to Bonekabahu. In return, the Portuguese would not launch a campaign of their own into Seethawaka. Upon learning that there was no more fighting or plundering to be done, the Portuguese returned to Goa not long afterwards, leaving behind an uneasy peace which would shatter at the touch of a finger. Despite Mayadunne's defeat, Kotte's problems were not over yet. King Bonekabahu was now growing old, and like his brother Pararajasekara, he did not have a son to inherit his throne after him. As a result, he married his daughter Samudradevi to one of his best generals, a man by the name of Vidya Bandara. After his marriage, Vidya Bandara was promoted to Bonekabahu's chief general. Mayadunne, however, was not pleased with this development, as he had hoped to claim the throne of Kotte after his brother's death, and so relations between Kotte and Seethawaka once again deteriorated. Pararajasekara died around this period, and Mayadunne officially annexed Raigama, enraging his brother Bonekabahu. Mayadunne, in the meantime, had rebuilt his economic and military position as the biggest power player in Sri Lanka, and now he began mustering his troops for a second invasion of Kotte. In response, Vidya Bandara took charge of Bonekabahu's armies and strengthened the defences of the capital, while Bonekabahu himself dispatched another plea for aid to the Portuguese viceroy. Mayadunne, in the meantime, contacted the Zamorin of Calicut to request assistance in his invasion. The Seethawaka-Calicut alliance had weakened after the defeat in 1527, but now the Zamorin decided that the time was ripe for another attempt on Kotte. In the year 1538, the Zamorin and Mayadunne once more launched a two-pronged attack on the city of Kotte, with the Zamorin attacking by sea and Mayadunne by land. This time, however, the Portuguese were more prompt in their response and sent a powerful naval contingent under General Miguel Pereira to Sri Lanka almost immediately. While still at sea, the Portuguese intercepted and clashed with the Zamorin's landing force at Negombo, destroying a portion and driving the rest off course, delaying their invasion. In the meantime, Mayadunne had once again conquered his way to the city of Corte and had besieged it. Not knowing of his allies' defeat, he launched several assaults on the city, all of which were repulsed with heavy losses. The victorious Portuguese soon landed at Colombo and swept away their assailants with Vidya Bandara's aid. This time the Portuguese chased Mayadunne all the way back to Seethawakan, penetrating deep into Seethawakan territory and dealing Mayadunne a crushing defeat at Gurubewla as they advanced. The Portuguese chased the Seethawakans all the way to the gates of Seethawaka and threatened to sack the city if Mayadunne did not come to terms. Mayadunne agreed, and 2 Seethawakan princes were sent to the Portuguese camp as hostages. They would be subsequently returned once the Portuguese departed Seethawaka. The terms imposed upon Mayadunne were that he betrayed the location of the Zamorin's remaining force when it landed on Sri Lanka. The Zamorin's navy had by this time regrouped and now proceeded towards their destination. As they came, they sent a message to Mayadunne with their projected landing site, not knowing Mayadunne had betrayed them. As soon as they landed, the oblivious Muslims were ambushed and massacred by the waiting Portuguese. Their betrayal caused diplomatic relations between Calicut and Seethawaka to disintegrate. They were not renewed, and Calicut would fall a few decades later. The Portuguese further insisted that Mayadunne pay a yearly tribute to Corte and hand Raigama over to his brother. The helpless Mayadunne had no choice but to comply. This reduced Seethawaka's territory considerably and greatly weakened Mayadunne's position for the next decade. Once Mayadunne had been soundly defeated, King Bonekabahu expected the Portuguese to return to Goa as they had done before. This time, however, they did not wish to leave Corte and remained with their several thousand troops. Using the recent rescue of the king as an excuse, the Portuguese began extracting various rights and privileges from the royal court. International trade with Corte was almost entirely taken over by the Portuguese. Portuguese troops replaced the Sinhalese garrisons in key forts throughout the kingdom. They also constructed a few forts of their own, including Gaul and Mana. Too late, Bonekabahu realized the Portuguese intended to seize full power in Corte. Though they could do it with a coup d'etat, they realized it would be much simpler to place a Portuguese puppet on the throne of Corte. A son by the name of Dharmapala was born to the union of Vidya Bandara and Samudradevi. Since he was Bonekabahu's grandson and a direct heir to the throne, the Portuguese immediately took custody of him, baptizing him as Don Juan Dharmapala, giving him a Portuguese education, and otherwise grooming him as a future Portuguese puppet ruler, in whose reign they could administer and profit from the kingdom of Corte as they wished. To this end, they forced Bonekabahu to publicly declare that Prince Dharmapala would succeed him to the throne. To further cement the agreement, they sent a golden statue of Dharmapala to the Portuguese emperor in Lisbon, so that he too would recognize Dharmapala as the new king of Corte. During the period of 1539 to 1551, the Portuguese imposed harsh taxes upon the common people and undermined the power of the local lords. Resentment against Portuguese rule grew steadily, the more so since the majority Buddhist and Hindu population saw Prince Dharmapala's conversion and baptism as a sign that the monarchy was enslaved by the Portuguese Catholics. The rift between the king and the people steadily widened. Several minor uprisings occurred, but were all ruthlessly crushed by Vidya Bandara and the Portuguese. Mayadunne, in the meantime, despite the loss of a large portion of his army and the entire kingdom of Raigama, was once more nursing his wounds and rebuilding his strength. He did not give up after the 2 unsuccessful invasions against Corte, instead preparing yet again for war against Bonekabahu and the Portuguese. But since he was not ready for open war yet, he regularly paid his tributes and avoided harassing Portuguese merchants and soldiers. Like his brother, Mayadunne was not immune to old age, but unlike him, he had a son to inherit his throne. That son was Tikiri Bandara, born in 1544, who grew up in Seethawaka, steadily learning tactics and warfare at his father's urging. At a tender age, he proved himself a capable student, tactician, fighter, and administrator, ideally poised with all the qualities needed to succeed his father seamlessly. From 1540 to 1551, Mayadunne and Vidya Bandara raided each other's territory, but with no decisive results. In the numerous skirmishes that took place during this period, the young Tikiri Bandara proved himself an exceptional commander and was subsequently appointed as his father's main general. Tensions steadily grew between 1545 and 1551 as the situations in both Corte and on the border grew steadily more volatile. so that one single match would be sufficient to set the entire country ablaze. This match came in 1551, when King Bonagabahu of Corte was shot by a Portuguese soldier. Vidya Bandara, in accordance with Portuguese demands, crowned young Prince Dharmapala as King of Corte shortly afterwards, with himself acting as regent. However, despite this complicity with Portuguese wishes, the Viceroy of Goa, Alfonso de Noronha, arrived at the Colombo fort 3 months later and, without warning, killed the Sinhalese garrison at the royal palace, broke into the treasury and plundered it of all valuables. At the same time, knowing Mayadunne might seize this opportunity as Corte was in turmoil to launch his invasion, Noronha preempted him by attacking Mayadunne in Seethawakan and defeating him in a decisive battle. He chased Mayadunne to his capital city of Seethawakan itself, and it was only once he had plundered it of all valuables that he agreed to withdraw. Mayadunne's forces were left toothless as the latter returned to Corte and demanded that Prince Dharmapala pay a hefty subsidy to the Portuguese in return for their further protection. Despite the empty treasury, the hapless Dharmapala managed to scrape together the sum required, upon the receipt of which Noronha and his contingent departed Corte, leaving Captain-Major João Henriques to govern the kingdom and its puppet ruler in his absence. While the Portuguese were busy consolidating their power in Corte, Mayadunne seized the opportunity to rebuild his power, to seize much of Corte's former territory and expand the Seethawakan sphere of influence. This virtual Portuguese annexation of Corte was not to the taste of the locals, and even less so to that of their lords, who feared that under Portuguese rule their power would decline. As the Portuguese grip on Corte steadily tightened, Vidya Bandara, who was Prince Dharmapala's regent, realized that his own power was fading and betrayed Henriques and ransacked the Corte treasury in its own turn before fleeing so as to gather enough military forces to drive the Portuguese from Corte and reaffirm his power in the kingdom. Many flocked to his banner. He negotiated an alliance with Tikiri Bandara so as to avoid being forced to fight a two-fronted war. Vidya Bandara was successful in his battles against his former Portuguese allies, at one point even managing to capture the city of Corte itself, though he was unable to retain his control over it. Mayadunne, however, did not wish Vidya Bandara to grow too powerful, so he betrayed him and formed a temporary alliance with the Portuguese, which culminated with Vidya Bandara's being defeated by a joint Portuguese Seethawakan army led by Tikiri Bandara in 1557. Afterwards, Vidya Bandara fled to Deondara to regroup but was kicked out by the locals after he usurped a local prince's position by killing him. Vidya Bandara fled to Jaffna, seeking support from its Tamil warlords, with what little plunder remained to him out of what he had stolen from the Corte treasury. However, a misunderstanding during his negotiations with them led to his being killed accidentally. Thus ended the last of organized resistance against the Portuguese in Corte. A year later, in 1557, Mayadunne, seeing that the years of constant fighting and civil uprisings had weakened the Portuguese, launched his long-planned invasion of Corte. The current Captain-Major, a man by the name of Pereira de Lacerda, withdrew to the capital, which was defended vigorously for several months against Seethawakan assaults that were as persistent as they were unsuccessful. Finally, as the year drew to a close, Tikiri Bandara and Mayadunne withdrew, having failed to take Corte for the third time. De Lacerda, however, had no intention of allowing the Seethawakans to rest and renew the assault the next year. He immediately began making preparations for an invasion of Seethawakan in the year of 1559. However, he fell badly ill with malaria shortly afterwards, and the invasion force was instead commanded by Captain-Major Jorge de Menzies, who replaced him as governor of Corte. Learning of this, Tikiri Bandara mustered his own forces and marched south to meet the Portuguese. The stage was set, and the battle that would take place would decide the fate of Portuguese Ceylon for decades to come. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more content on Sri Lankan history. It helps immensely to keep the channel going. And as always, thank you for watching.